In the bustling bus station of Lomé, Amina clutched her bag and her heart seemed already gone. She kissed Jelani quickly, barely looking at the tiny faces of her newborn twin daughters, Safi and Zola, before slipping into the crowd. Jelani stood frozen for a moment, holding his girls close, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. He watched her vanish, the noise of the station blending with the pounding of his heart. He didn't cry, not yet, but a quiet fire ignited inside him. He promised himself he would give these daughters the life their mother abandoned, no matter the cost. Days turned into years, and Jelani worked every hour he could find, from the early mornings in markets to long nights at construction sites. He cooked, cleaned, and somehow managed to make their small apartment feel like home. Safi and Zola grew up hearing stories of resilience and kindness, learning from a father whose love was patient, constant, and fierce. Flashbacks of Amina's absence appeared in the background, empty rooms, unanswered letters, birthdays forgotten, but the warmth of their tiny, humble home never faded. Jelani's sacrifices planted seeds of ambition and courage in the twins, who absorbed his lessons like sponges. Even without a mother, they felt whole because they had each other and a father who refused to let life's hardships define them. Little did anyone know, the quiet strength Jelani nurtured in his daughters would one day turn into a force unstoppable, reshaping their destiny and making the world take notice. Over the next 10 years, Jelani made a brave decision to leave Lomé and start fresh in Bamako, hoping to give Safi and Zola more opportunities than he ever had. Life was not easy. He took on every job he could find, from selling goods at the busy markets to long nights working in small shops, just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Despite the exhaustion, he never complained. Instead, he poured every ounce of energy into his daughters, teaching them lessons that went beyond schoolbooks. He told them that no matter how hard life got, giving up was never an option. He showed them that hard work, honesty, and courage could open doors even when the world seemed against them. Safi and Zola watched him closely, learning from his tireless example. They carried his lessons in their hearts, practicing resilience whenever they faced small failures at school or with friends. In quiet moments, Jelani would tell stories of hope and imagination, encouraging the girls to dream big. They made small plans together, like starting tiny businesses in the neighborhood, saving coins for books, or helping neighbors, learning responsibility and the power of initiative. Their modest apartment was simple, but it overflowed with love, laughter, and encouragement, a sharp contrast to the life they never knew with their mother. Flashbacks of Amina's indifference sometimes appeared in their minds, a missed birthday, an empty crib, letters never answered, but those memories were tinged more with curiosity than pain, because Jelani's love filled the void. The twins began to understand that love was not about appearances or wealth, it was about consistency, care, and presence. By the time Safi and Zola reached their teenage years, they were confident, curious, and fearless, shaped by a father who had fought every day for them. They were ambitious but grounded, understanding the value of both hard work and heart. They excelled in school, helped in small community projects, and dreamed of building something meaningful for themselves and others. Jelani watched them with quiet pride, knowing that the seeds he had sown over a decade were growing into something extraordinary. The contrast between their humble but nurturing home and the life Amina had abandoned became even clearer as the girls matured. While their mother had pursued comfort and self-interest, Jelani and his daughters built strength, character, and dreams that could not be bought. Little by little, the foundation was set, not just for financial success, but for a story of resilience, unity, and triumph. What began in a small apartment in Bamako was quietly preparing the twins to take on the world, with lessons from their father echoing in every choice they made, guiding them toward a destiny their mother could never have imagined. By the time Safi and Zola were teenagers, they were no longer the quiet, curious girls Jelani had raised. They had grown into sharp, fearless, and ambitious young women, always looking for ways to challenge themselves and help others. One afternoon, while sorting through some old papers in Jelani's study, they stumbled upon a letter tucked into a dusty book. It was from their father's late mentor, a man Jelani had always spoken of with respect and affection. The letter revealed a surprising secret. Jelani had inherited a small company in Abidjan, one that had been struggling and largely forgotten. It was tiny, just a few employees and a small office, but the potential was enormous if someone could see it. Safi and Zola's eyes lit up with excitement. For the first time, they saw an opportunity not just to help their family, but to create something entirely their own. They begged Jelani to let them try, and he hesitated for a moment, knowing how much responsibility this would bring. But seeing the determination in their eyes, he agreed, offering guidance while giving them space to make their own decisions. The twins dove in, learning everything they could about business, technology, and leadership. They spent late nights reading, testing ideas, and experimenting with ways to improve the small company. Mistakes were made, of course, projects failed, plans fell through, and doubts crept in, but Safi and Zola never gave up. They encouraged each other, combining their strengths, Safi's strategic thinking and Zola's creativity, forming a team that was unstoppable. Slowly, the company began to grow. They introduced new technology, streamlined processes, and created products that people needed. Word started to spread, and soon the once-forgotten business became a rising star in the tech world. Clients from across the region began reaching out, drawn to the twins' innovative ideas and passion. What had started as a hidden inheritance became a thriving enterprise under their care. Jelani watched with pride as the girls he had raised from newborns transformed the company, and themselves, into something extraordinary. Along the way, they never forgot the lessons from their father: resilience, hard work, and integrity. Their success was not just financial, it was a story of courage, determination, and the power of believing in oneself. They went from humble beginnings in Bamako to running a booming tech startup in Abidjan, proving that dreams could be built with heart and effort, not just luck. Every challenge they faced made them stronger, and every small victory fueled their ambition. In the process, Safi and Zola became more than just businesswomen, they became symbols of hope, inspiration, and the unstoppable power of turning obstacles into opportunities. Their rags-to-riches journey had truly begun, and the world was only starting to notice. Far away in Accra, Amina's life took a very different turn. She moved from one luxurious apartment to another, chasing comfort and excitement, but no amount of shopping, parties, or expensive vacations could fill the emptiness she felt inside. Relationships came and went, each one more disappointing than the last, leaving her lonelier than before. Friends noticed her restless energy, but Amina ignored their concern, too caught up in appearances and fleeting pleasures to see what truly mattered. She spent money freely, buying clothes, cars, and jewelry, yet every new purchase seemed to fade in meaning the moment she stepped out of the store. The life she had imagined for herself, a life without struggle, felt hollow, and yet she couldn't stop chasing it. Social media became a small mirror of her life, showing snapshots of success, beauty, and influence, but it also hinted at her regrets. Occasionally, a post would remind her of birthdays she had missed, or a family gathering she had abandoned. She would scroll past pictures of children playing, laughing, or achieving milestones, feeling a flicker of unease that she quickly tried to ignore. Somewhere deep down, she knew there were daughters she had left behind, but she rarely thought about them, and when she did, it was just a quiet whisper she pushed away. The contrast between her life of excess and the normal, loving upbringing Jelani had given the twins remained hidden from her, but the audience could sense it growing, an undercurrent of tension that suggested things were about to change. Meanwhile, Safi and Zola's names slowly began appearing in business news and social media feeds, though Amina didn't notice. Stories of young entrepreneurs transforming a small tech company into a regional powerhouse circulated online, but she scrolled past them, uninterested or distracted by her own dramas. She had no idea that the ambitious, talented girls building an empire were the very children she had walked away from years ago. Each failed relationship, each wasted dollar, and each empty evening in her lavish apartment only deepened her unconscious longing, creating a sense of regret that would eventually catch up to her. The stage was set without her realizing it. While she stumbled through a life of indulgence and disappointment, the daughters she abandoned were learning, growing, and preparing to surpass every expectation. Social media hints, small news clips, and fleeting reminders of the past built a quiet anticipation. The audience could feel the tension mounting as Amina drifted further from the life she could have had, unaware that the very children she left behind were quietly shaping a future far beyond her imagination. The contrast between her spiraling world and the rising stars of Bamako and Abidjan created an irresistible sense of suspense, leaving everyone waiting to see the moment when the past and the present would collide. As Safi and Zola's company grew stronger in Abidjan, Jelani quietly guided them behind the scenes, offering advice and connections that opened doors across Africa. He taught them how to negotiate, how to spot opportunities, and how to trust their instincts while staying true to their values. Slowly, the twins began expanding into new markets, setting up offices in key cities where their technology could make the biggest impact. Nairobi was first, a bustling city filled with energy and innovation. The twins arrived determined and confident, turning a small rented space into a sleek office with a team that shared their vision. Clients and partners were impressed not only by their talent but also by their professionalism and courage. Word spread quickly, and soon their presence in Lagos, the heart of Nigeria's business world, made headlines. Photos of the twins cutting ribbons at their new offices circulated online, showing two young women who had gone from humble beginnings to commanding attention in cities they had never even dreamed of. Each new step felt like a quiet victory for Jelani as well. He remembered nights working multiple jobs to feed them, days teaching them lessons about perseverance, and now he watched them step into rooms where no one knew their past but everyone respected their skill. Safi handled strategy while Zola focused on innovation, a perfect partnership that made the company unstoppable. By the time they turned 29, the twins had built an empire spanning several African countries. Billionaire status wasn't just about money, it was proof that their hard work, vision, and courage had created something truly remarkable. The dramatic reveals were impossible to ignore. Social media posts showed the twins walking confidently into luxury offices, meeting top executives, and shaking hands with influential leaders. Journalists began writing feature stories, calling them the youngest tech moguls on the continent. The narrative was electric: two daughters abandoned by their mother, raised by a tireless father, now standing taller than anyone had imagined. Every post, every headline, every announcement carried a sense of triumph and the sweet satisfaction of the underdog rising. Jelani's quiet pride was never for show. He let the twins take the spotlight, but in his heart, he knew he had played a part in every success. The story of the family's rise, starting from a small apartment in Bamako to commanding offices in Nairobi and Lagos, was one of resilience, intelligence, and courage. Safi and Zola had not only become business powerhouses but symbols of determination, proving that the right mix of love, guidance, and fearless ambition could transform a life. By the time their 30th birthday approached, the world recognized them as unstoppable, and their success carried a message: no matter how humble the start, determination and heart could build an empire. Years later, Safi and Zola returned to Lomé, but no one recognized them at first. They wore elegant gowns and carried themselves with the poise of women who had conquered the world, moving through the city like they belonged everywhere. Their goal was simple yet powerful: a charitable gala to raise funds for children in need, a cause close to their hearts because of everything they had been through. The venue buzzed with reporters, photographers, and high-profile guests, all eager to see the mystery benefactors behind the massive donations. The twins smiled politely, answered questions with charm, and moved gracefully through the crowd, leaving a trail of curiosity and admiration. Among the attendees was Amina, sitting in her seat with a glass of wine, enjoying the glamour and applause, unaware that the past she had tried to forget was about to confront her. When the cameras focused on Safi and Zola for the first time, showing two stunning, confident women speaking passionately about helping abandoned children, Amina froze. Her eyes widened, and her hand trembled slightly as recognition hit her. These were her daughters, the very children she had left behind years ago, now radiant, articulate, and powerful. She could barely breathe, and her mind raced, remembering all the birthdays missed, all the letters unanswered, and every moment she had chosen herself over them. The media noticed her reaction, snapping photos and capturing her stunned expression, unaware of the story behind it. Tension thickened in the room, almost electric, as the twins moved closer to their mother without revealing their identities outright. They watched quietly from a distance, measuring her reaction, seeing the confusion, guilt, and shock etched across her face. Every word they spoke to the crowd, every smile they shared with donors, carried a subtle reminder of what she had abandoned. The room's applause felt almost like a drumbeat, marking the moment when past decisions collided with present triumph. Amina's mind spiraled with questions. How could they be so successful? So confident? So self-assured? The woman she had once ignored, the tiny babies she had left behind, had grown into unstoppable forces, shaping their destiny in ways she could never have imagined. For the first time, she truly understood the magnitude of her choices, and the emptiness of her own path became painfully clear. Meanwhile, Safi and Zola remained composed, their power silent but undeniable. They had returned not for revenge, but to shine a light on the life they had built and the father who had never given up on them. The contrast between Amina's shocked, unsettled presence and the twins' calm, radiant strength sent a ripple through the gala. In that moment, everyone present sensed the quiet justice of the underdog rising, the past confronting the present in a way that was beautiful, emotional, and impossible to forget. That evening, Jelani's estate glowed with soft lights, the kind that made the large rooms feel warm and alive. Safi and Zola had invited Amina for dinner, not as strangers, but as the daughters she had abandoned so many years ago. The moment she stepped through the doors, she sensed something different, an energy she couldn't quite place. The twins greeted her politely, but their smiles carried a quiet confidence, a strength born from years of hard work and determination. As they all sat down at the long dining table, Amina fidgeted, unsure of how to act or what to say, while Jelani watched silently, proud but tense. The conversation began lightly, with small talk about the city and the gala, but it didn't stay light for long. Safi leaned forward first, her voice calm but firm, asking about the years she had missed. Zola followed, recounting moments they had longed for their mother's presence, birthdays, school performances, and milestones Jelani had quietly carried them through alone. Amina's eyes filled with tears, guilt creeping into her chest, but the twins didn't stop there. They told her how they had built a tech empire, how they had offices in Nairobi and Lagos, and how their lives had been shaped by their father's tireless devotion. Every word emphasized the stark contrast between their success and the emptiness of Amina's own life. Amina tried to explain herself, stumbling over excuses about circumstances and choices, but the twins listened, unshaken. They spoke with a mixture of defiance and grace, making it clear they had not returned to seek revenge, but to face the truth and reclaim their story. The room felt charged with emotion, every glance, every pause, every quiet intake of breath added weight to the moment. Jelani, watching his daughters, felt a swell of pride, seeing them empowered, unapologetic, and fully in command of their lives. By the end of the dinner, Amina was left speechless, confronting the reality of a life she could never reclaim. She saw not just the women her daughters had become, but the choices she had made, the love she had abandoned, the years lost, and the path of emptiness she had followed. Safi and Zola, on the other hand, radiated strength and control, embodying resilience, intelligence, and the rewards of unwavering determination. It was a conversation that everyone in the room, and anyone who would later hear the story, would remember. The mixture of guilt, empowerment, and emotional intensity made it unforgettable. Amina faced her mistakes, Jelani saw the full circle of his sacrifices, and the twins proved that courage and perseverance could transform pain into power. That dinner wasn't just a confrontation, it was a revelation, a turning point, and a moment that captured the essence of triumph over abandonment, making it dramatic, deeply human, and impossible to forget. The night of the big announcement was electric, filled with excitement and hope. Safi and Zola stepped onto the stage at a packed auditorium, their faces glowing with purpose. The crowd hushed as they began speaking, explaining their new philanthropic project, a massive initiative to support abandoned and underprivileged children across Africa. They described schools, mentorship programs, and community centers designed to give kids the love, guidance, and opportunities they deserved, the kind of care they had received from their father. Every word was filled with passion, and every gesture showed their deep commitment. When they publicly dedicated the project to Jelani, the audience erupted in applause, honoring the father who had never given up, who had worked tirelessly to give his daughters everything he could. From the back of the auditorium, Amina watched silently, her heart heavy with realization. She saw the love and respect Jelani commanded, the admiration pouring over her daughters, and the legacy they were building together. Each cheer felt like a reminder of what she had lost, and a quiet sting ran through her as she faced the full measure of her absence. There was no anger or confrontation this time, just a deep, undeniable truth that the life she had walked away from had flourished without her. Meanwhile, the media coverage and social media posts began to spread the story across the continent. Articles, photos, and videos celebrated the twins' triumph, emphasizing how love, resilience, and hard work could turn even the toughest circumstances into extraordinary success. Jelani's quiet pride shone through every interview, and Safi and Zola's energy inspired countless people watching. By the end of the evening, the twins had not only secured national acclaim but had also created a lasting impact that would extend far beyond their family. They had turned heartbreak into hope, struggle into power, and abandonment into a force for good. The story closed with triumph, closure, and inspiration, leaving everyone with the unforgettable message that resilience, love, and courage can truly change the world.